And so let me just hit record. I think
Mm-hmm.
either it will download as the video or audio, and that's fine. But it is so great to connect this way and
Yeah.
reconnect.
Yeah.
And, you know, it is so interesting as I'm going back and I'm reading through each of the songs you sent me: In Time, Eternally
Mm-hmm.
Speaking,
Mm-hmm.
Issues of Life.
Mm-hmm.
It's so amazing how things transpire and happen in your life and take on such a powerful meaning
Mm-hmm.
and transform in a way.
Yeah.
And when I was reading those, I just kept thinking to myself, the time is now.
Right.
The time is now. And so, um, as we move into the second segment here, I would love for you to speak about some of the things I captured from our first podcast was how when you got started as urban journalist, you were in such
Uh-huh.
a different place. Now you have evolved, you've matured, turned to spirituality, um, and there's been such an evolution in your spirit.
Right.
And I'm just wondering if you would love to elaborate on how you have now um, perceived music a little bit differently and what you want the message to be in the world and what you'd like to contribute.
Mm-hmm. Well, with music, I've always believed that a message is important. Um, as a younger artist, like when I first started out, as a young man growing up in a society that, at the time was very materialistic and all about building image, in show businesses, a lot of times, especially back then, it was about building image and everything. It was difficult because I always wanted to be free to be who God made me. Um, and so when I was younger, there was a lot of pressure to um, conform, conform to what was hot then, and gangster rap was hot then, and
Mm,
especially for African American males in your music, they wanted you to personify ego, testosterone, and you know what I'm saying. But
mm,
it was so much more. There was so much more to me as a human being. I had feelings, I had aspirations, I had dreams. And I wanted to really give my listeners who I was, who God made me, because everything that I am and have become, I attribute it to God. As you know, I'm a Christian. I'm a believer in God and Jesus Christ and everything. Even then, even when I wasn't as spiritual then, but I wanted to share with the people who God made. And so I was blessed now, like as you said, evolution, to grow to the person now where I'm speaking to people via preaching the gospel and still singing. I sing in church a lot. And back then, through poetry and hip hop, the writing to me was the best part.
mhm.
Writing and then expressing it in the studio. But I always wanted to give people the real me, what God made me, at least the parts that they could handle. And a lot of times when I would meet with different artists and different managers and A&Rs and things of that nature, they would say, well, you got to talk about the streets more. You got to sound tougher. You got to do this. But I was like, I wanted to let people know that as a man, I was more than just testosterone. I was actually smart. I actually had feelings and I actually had dreams. And I actually was a social person, was
Yes.
able to socialize and relate to people. So where I've evolved to now is just becoming more comfortable expressing who God has made me. It was a lot of pressure back then to be something else. And
Yeah.
I'm glad I never conformed. If anybody ever goes and listens to my music from back then, you could see I never conformed. You could hear the frustration of being pushed to conform. A lot of my songs
Yeah.
were birthed out of that.
Sure. Sure. And I feel like I can really relate to that in this piece of ourselves that wants to really be in line with mainstream
Mm-hmm.
and do what is expected.
Right.
And as a student in my communications class, and that being a slightly different context, it's all related. And the biggest thing that we discussed was owning your voice. You know, we watched the King's Speech, and there's something so powerful about stripping away what people expect of us
Mm-hmm.
and doing what we feel in our hearts.
Mm-hmm.
And you had also mentioned the phrase, you know, not having a voice, how crippling that was. And so you were sort of using your voice against your own heart in a lot of the ways, I think, but there's still beauty in that, and there's so much creativity and an expression there to kind of shed and get out of that. So um, tell me more about what some of the lyrics, these recent songs that you put together. How did taking a course in communications or doing some extra exploration of self lead you to develop these songs?
Well, um, I remember you and I had a conversation about intra-communication.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a person that, as an artist and as somebody who's a minister now, and and a student at one point, communication is very essential to what I do
Mm-hmm.
and to who I am. So when you and I had that conversation about how intra-communication is how you talk to yourself, that was really it was like an aha moment. It was like really enlightening. I couldn't find a better expression. Sorry.
I love it. I love it.
But it was like it was an enlightening moment for me
Yeah.
that you know that led me to write the song internally speaking. Because when you speak internally, you may eventually speak to other people. When you
Mm-hmm.
speak internally, that really describes what's going on inside of you and the relationship that you have with yourself.
Yes.
I strongly believe that unfortunately, just like you have nice people in this world, you have mean people. And I strongly believe that people who hurt others verbally and in many other ways, their intra-communication is darkened.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no way that you can have beautiful communication with yourself, then it comes out negative.
Yeah.
And so when I wrote the song for our future project, internally speaking,
Yes.
it had a lot to do with what you taught me about intercommunication. Because I always had an idea subconsciously of what intercommunication was, but it was like God used you to help expand that idea. And so that's why I wrote that song, for our project, internally speaking, because people need to know what's going on inside. And I think that that's the gift that I had when I was young. Um, as an artist, I always knew that there was something else going on inside of me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I never conformed because I'm sure
Yeah.
that as a woman, you could relate society wanting you to conform to something.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? As a black man, I was always um, under the pressure to conform, but not have a voice. In other words, um,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it was believed that most, especially at that time in my generation, Generation X, which was our generation, you know, rap, hip hop, gangster movies, black guys think they're tough, they're mandingo, this, all that. But in reality, I wanted to express what we really go through. And sometimes the pressure from the world can be so much. I know me personally, my intra-communication told me that sometimes I had to muster up enough self-esteem just for one day.
Right.
So I wasn't feeling like Mandingo or super gangster. I was feeling actually very scared
Yeah.
and in some ways very lost. Where do I fit in? It was like kind of like an identity crisis in a way. I had an album that actually it didn't do that great, but I considered it the most important album of my life, and it was called Searching for an Identity.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the first songs on it was called It Ain't Love.
Mm-hmm.
And in one of the lines, I put somebody saw me cry. Now I'm not the same in their eyes. Put me to shame because I'm not the same in the game, judging me because a woman got the best of me. That ain't love. And
Mhm.
basically what I was saying was they saw my weakness. Now they don't look at me the same.
Right.
When I said judging me because a woman got the best of me, that was actually a relationship I was in where I got my heart broke.
Yeah.
And some people I knew witnessed me cry about it and they laughed at me. Because as a man, especially as a black man, you're not supposed to cry. You ain't supposed to feel anything.
Right.
That's not true. We're all human. And that's why when you taught me about intra-communication, I even saw when you were elaborating on it and we watched the King's speech and everything, I even saw how you were able to relate as a woman and as an artist. And I was like, wow, it was just like it was a moment where I gained some more freedom.
Yeah. Oh, that just really fulfills my soul so much right now hearing this, because what I have really found through teaching is that a lot of what I'm presenting has been presented to me, but when I relay it, it's such a simple concept, and we resist a lot of things that are simple.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea of that opening slide saying communication starts with self, that transformed my music as well,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
because I let myself trust the words that I was trying to experiment with and not hold back, instead of contrive them and try to make it fit a certain message, when through the process of self-exploration and trust,
Yeah.
absolutely trusting the people I'm working with. That's why I love collaborating so much, and I'm really grateful to continue my evolution through your words. Is collaboration helps us to dig deeper as well,
Mm-hmm.
and we are now given a great opportunity to give voice and translate that idea into our own being,
Mm-hmm.
and it really makes a difference to have all of these things to start come together, and then from there, how did you what do you think triggered the song In Time? How was that
Mm-hmm.
message developed?
Well, that message was developed. It was actually through many complicated issues, a very simple event. And it's funny because it involves you again. But in time, one of the things that inspired me to write In Time was upon meeting you and stuff and exchanging ideas about music. When I learned about intra-communication, and I got that moment of enlightenment. Um, Sometimes I would struggle in my past with patience.
Uh-huh.
When is this pain going to go away? When am I going to be freed from this slavery of having to conform and having to be misunderstood, and how it
Yeah.
affects myself? So when you and I spoke, we talked about music. It was a moment of freedom. Like sometimes freedom comes in stages.
Yes.
And so
Yeah.
when you and I spoke, and I learned from you, and I just came to the conclusion that sometimes things have to play themselves out, but in time, it will make sense. In time, the message that you have been reading, right? The
Mm-hmm.
spirit, the spirit of that message will eventually come out and touch you,
Yeah.
and and speak to you, and that's what happens. So, In Time was a song where I wanted the listeners to know that basically your pain has a purpose.
Yeah.
If you stay on that path of righteousness that you're on, you know what I'm saying? Like, um,
Yes.
even
Yeah.
if you look in the Bible, Jesus had to cry even before he got to the cross. But his path to the cross to set the human race free. Um, Once he rose from the dead, once he conquered death, um, his example is still alive today. So in time, he rose with all power.
Yeah.
In time, Kat was able to get free from some things, like that moment that we shared that day when we
Mm-hmm.
spoke. I watched you get free from something. You did
Free.
something very brave. You know what I'm saying? So in time,
Yes.
every part of us will connect and actually make sense of our life.
Yes.
Because no human being is just one thing. You know, we're mind, body, spirit, and soul. And the reason why many of us go through different transitions and stuff like that, because every part of us is trying to connect with the other part of us and make sense. So,
Yeah.
but in time, that does happen if we stay on our path.
Yes.
Don't give in to the pressure to conform.
Yeah. And even in the short amount of time I've seen you truly evolve. And it seemed like in the moment that we met, you wanted everything to change right then and there. Like you needed
Yeah.
it now.
Mm-hmm.
And then slowly, as the days, the months go on, I've seen you transform.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen you really come back to your heart. And what do you want for for this music? What's your vision and the message that you want to share?
Um, and the message that I want to share is that freedom is possible.
Yeah.
Freedom is very possible, and making sense of our pain,
Mm-hmm.
but also that you heard me mention being a black man a lot, but the reality is, as a Christian, I believe that the human race is one race. And so in the song The Issues of Life, which is the first song I wrote
Yes.
for our project, for you,
Yes.
um the Issues of Life really talks about how outside of where we come from and what we look like on the outside, we all can relate,
Mm-hmm.
because our journey in life has obstacles. There's not one race of people. I've traveled outside the country before.
Mm-hmm.
There's not one race of people that I've ever met that does not have obstacles on their path.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, like, and this takes me back to Martin Luther King's vision when he was saying that, he had a dream that one day we could walk together as a human race, one race. If we really got past
Mm-hmm.
our superficial differences and walk together, not you, but people would be surprised at how much healing could take place.
Oh yeah. And
Yeah.
as we come towards the end of this conversation, there's such a beauty in this message right now, because the idea of freedom, patience, and unity. I just recently had a birthday, and while I was alone, I've never felt more connected and together,
Hmm.
to spirituality, to my family, to my friends, to my loved ones,
Hmm.
because through this pain, through
Hmm.
what people are going through right now, there is light and there is hope. And these are the messages that I think are really coming forward. And just like Martin Luther King and that dream, my dream
Hmm.
and your dream is that we keep this mindset going.
Yeah. 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 And you know what? We have to keep that mindset going, because every story that I've ever read about any great person,
Yeah.
whether it be in biblical history or African history, American history, is that each of them was disturbed by something
Yeah.
that caused them to get up and be great. And I watched my wife create her blog about her struggle, which was like one of the bravest things I ever seen anybody do.
Yeah.
And I think I shared with you the blog.
No, I'll no, you have to send that to me.
Yeah, I'm gonna send it to you. I mean, it's
Please.
incredible. It's incredible. But
Yes.
um, every person that became great was disturbed by something.
Yeah.
What I was disturbed by was
Mm-hmm.
pressure in my generation to conform
Yes.
and not be human. A man has to be human. And even in my music, I wanted to give a message of healing and freedom so that we could better relate to our women
Yes.
in our society, so that we could better help them heal and you know what I'm saying? And help them heal from the oppression that they have faced
Mm-hmm.
at the hands of men. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I felt like meeting you was so powerful, because I I got to learn your pain, and I hear it a lot in your music. Like Chasing Shadows and Pull Me In are two powerful songs. But that's why I always encourage you to keep doing what you're doing, because your pain has made you who and what you are.
Yeah.
And it's affecting people. Because like you said, you watched me evolve. You were part of that evolving.
Oh,
You know what I mean? And that's the truth.
thank
You
you.
know, but I got to learn that about you. That's why that song, The Issues of Life, is so powerful, because
Yes.
here it is, it's a woman, I can relate to her pain.
Yeah.
Follow me?
I
But in
follow.
mainstream society, if a man says that, they'd be like, what do you mean by that? You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
But in our world as artists,
Yeah.
we can be free.
Yes. Absolutely.
I'm
Well,
sorry, I
thank
could go on forever.
I know. Thank you so much for this. I'm just going to pause it here. Of course, there's always to be continued between us, just to work with the technology and say thank you, because I'm inspired by inspired people, and talking about the process, creativity, and being connected just really uplifts me and keeps me going. So thank you for being so um, so righteous and on your path and connected, because that's what we need right now. And it's so great talking about this with you today. Thank you
Thank
so
you so
much,
much.
Richard. Okay,
You're welcome. Thank you too.
great. Just pause it right here.